Perek Mem Beis, as we discussed last few shiurim, talks about Yireh. And the Nakuda of Yireh, as the Alter Rebbe explains it, is a Yireh, every Yireh, has at its core, has at its pnimius bittul. And that's the pshat in the Gemara. The Yireh is called Milsa Zutra Se'i, and we connect it to Moshe Rabbeinu. What do I have to do with Moshe Rabbeinu? Because this is, Yireh and bittul is like Yechida. Anything which is with Yechida, we invoke. The Alter Rebbe constantly makes this terminology, Klolus Yisrael. In other words, I as an individual am whatever I am. But parts of Klolus Yisrael gives me a shaychas tinyonim which are bigger than me. Yireh has this bittul quality. And the point is, this is a basic difference between Yireh and Ahava. And that is that every Yireh is in its previous bittul. But not every Ahava is. Which is why when the sugi of Ahava, which is going to be in Mitzshem, the end of Mem Gimel and Mem Daled, there's going to be a distinction made between Ahava mitzad HaTeva, Ahava which has to do with this pnimiistic quality, and Stam Ahava, which comes from his bonus and so forth and so on. And we're going to go back to it also L'cheire in Perek Nun, but that we could say is a little bit different. And what we started discussing was the hisbonenus which brings to Yireh. Right? What do I meditate to develop Yireh? And the first thing the Alter Rebbe said is that the Eibush knows what's going on. Even though it creates all kinds of philosophical questions, how could an unchanging God know what's happening in a changing world? And of course the Rambam says, Hu Yedei and Hu and Hu Amada. That's for the issue what we're discussing. And the Alter Rebbe now continues. In this discussion of the Eibush knowing what's going on, and that why should I be afraid of the Eibush? Because the Eibush knows what's going on, and he cares. And I matter. V'hinei, kol adam yishal, every single Jew. Whoever he may be, Kisha is Beinin Bazeh, he will think in terms of the Eibush knowing what he's doing and caring about what he's doing. An extended hour every day. In other words, how much time? The answer, how much time, is how much time you need. That's it. Right? Some people need a short amount of time, but other people need a longer amount of time. And you cannot say, well, I can only fit 15 minutes into my schedule. Anishis manishke yid. Fills mamish the higher levels and the lower levels. And the heavens and the earth mamish are filled with his honor mamish. And here is the relevant point. First of all, the Welt is Getlachkeit, but more relevantly, the idea that the world is Getlachkeit is K'mar Shir, this idea that the world is God, you'll see tomorrow. And then the beginning of Mem Gimel. But what's Negia right now is the following. He looks and he steers and he measures. Kilyes of Alibe. Kilyes means the kidneys. Alev means the heart, which is Nehi and Chagas. Of everything that we do and speak. And the Eibush actually measures our steps, but he counts. So we think about the fact that not only Hashem is here and Hashem is everything, but that He's attentive. And He pays attention to detail. And He cares, and we matter as I take Babalibe. It will fix in one's heart, it will plant in one's heart Ayira, fear of the Eibishter, respect for the Eibishter, responsibility and seriousness and accountability. L'chalayim kulei, for the entirety of the day. In the morning, you need to have Shal Gedela. And during the course of the day, after you've done the morning Shal Gedela, so then, you'll think about it again, b'meshech the day. Afilu b'izbonenus kala, very, very abbreviated, quick rethinking, every hour and every moment. So the fact that in the morning you spent a lot of time on it will allow that a little bit of rethinking will be sufficient during the course of the day. To stay away from evil and to do good, in thought, speech, and deed. Not to rebel, God forbid, or Hamara means to replace, to change over, God forbid. The eyes of the Eibishter, that fills everything. We had in Tanya Perek Mamalef, what Rabbi Yechim says to his Talmidim, you should be as afraid of God as you're afraid of man. And when the Talmidim said to him, that's it, that's all you want, so his answer was halavai. If the Eibush is real, you don't sin, but the Eibush has to be real. So in the morning you need Shal Gedela, and after you had a morning Shal Gedela, during the course of the day, it's enough Hizbonenus Kala. That what is the point of Yirah? Now before we focused on the Kiyim, how could you say Yirah is a Milsa Zutra? And the answer was a Ma'aseh mit Moshe Rabbeinu. And we now know the answer is it has to do with Klolus Yisrael Bittul. But of course, what's the measure of Yirah? That Lalachas B'derachim. That it translates into Machshava Dibur Ma'aseh, that you follow the ways of Hashem. In other words, how much fear is enough? Shehi hayir, this is a measure of fear. Hamavir lakir mitzvahs of his barach that brings us to fulfill the mitzvah of the Eibishter. Besor meirav asaytev, staying away from evil and doing good. He beginnes yirat atah now, which is a lesser madrega of yirat, with which the Alter Rebbe started this Perek, and with which he discussed in Perek Mamalav. Reiches avedav ikev v'shash is the lower yirat, because the key to the lower yirat is not how much I'm afraid of the Eibishter, but the avodas of it, the bittul. And since the key is the bittul, it doesn't matter if it's a lot of fear or a little fear, a higher fear, a lower fear, because bittul is trend. It's mavriach manakatz alakatz. There's no limits whatsoever. That's why there's no yitzchak, as we discussed the other day in the shir. L'gabi meisha, compared to meisha. Translates the Rebbe again. Hainu l'gabi b'chinas hadas shebechol nefesh mi Yisrael ho likis. The godly soul, and specifically the pintel yid, which is the core of every single Jew. This das is milsa zutas. It's a small deal. Kanas kel we discussed earlier in the Perek. And shahadas, who? What is the function of das? That it's hamakashet, it ties. Matspuni binas alev, the hidden understanding of the heart. In other words, what you have in your mayach. Al-Bechinas gili b'machshava mamish, it should manifest in your heart and in your practical thought. As it's discussed to people who know Kabbalah. And as I mentioned to you last time when we learned this, that the idea of das being a bridge has two levels. One level of das being a bridge is that it makes a munah real. And the other level of das being a bridge is that it makes what's hidden in your seichel be his galus and midas. The second is what's negay in this Perek. That it brings it into midas. You should feel fear. And the feeling of fear is revealing the bittul which is hidden. And that's enough to be a bit practically serving the Eibishter b'pil mamish.